Hello, lovely people. Welcome to Ari Talks About Music. I'm Ari, and today I have a review for you of this new Mac Miller album, Balloonerism. Balloonerism is the second posthumous album and seventh overall album by the American rapper Mac Miller, and is one that, despite being a posthumous release, is one that I was still very much looking forward to. Posthumous albums in general are notorious for often being quite disappointing, and quite a lot of the time are just cash grabs by the artist's estate. One that comes to mind for me in recent memory is the new Sophie album that came out last year, which I did find to be very disappointing and really just nowhere near what I think her vision truly was for that album. However, despite the bar being set so low for posthumous albums in general, given how much I enjoyed Mac Miller's previous album Circles in 2020, I couldn't help but be excited for this one, given that this album was mostly recorded around 2014, when Mac Miller was in a much more light-hearted era of his music. I can't say I'm surprised that this album has only now seen the light of day, given how serious and mellow a lot of this is compared to much of the other work he was doing back then. The opening track on this album, DJ's Chord Organ, has this really, really nice lo-fi kind of sound to it, and really makes it clear right from the start that you are going to be in for a very sad and very personal album, despite the fact that this song actually doesn't feature Mac Miller himself on vocals. The track Do You Have a Destination is definitely on the more personal side of songs on this album, touching on themes of fame and struggling with that, and the hardships of becoming so famous almost overnight, and how he was dealing with that back at the time. Friendly Hallucinations is a really good song, however, it does sound a bit more upbeat, and while obviously it's good to have light and shade on an album, especially as heavy as this one, it does sound maybe just a tad out of place, with almost sounding happy compared to the songs surrounding it. However, like many of the tracks on this album, the lyrics is where it really shines and really shows that it's not as happy as it lets on, touching on themes of drugs and addiction. Stoned is a beautifully tragic song about addiction and isolation, and many of the lyrics on this song almost feel haunting, knowing that this came out after his death, despite obviously it all being written and recorded while he was still alive. Lines like, "Put on a record, can I play you one more song? I swear to God, heaven feels just like home." Things like that really just feel like a gut punch, having this being released as a posthumous album. Shangri-La, once again, like many songs I've already mentioned, is just a really beautiful, very personal song that's all about addiction and struggling with that. And once again, just continues the theme of just hitting even harder with this being a release after his death, and really just adds so much to the experience of listening to songs like this. Funny Papers is quite possibly the most emotional song on this album, featuring this narrative of reading the newspaper each day and all these stories going by, but none of it really matters because you just keep living your life and you never interact with any of these stories that you're hearing about. And this song really just feels like you're watching the world go by while you're trying to get on with your own difficult life. And especially with how emotional the vocals are on this song, it really does make it one of my absolute favorites and definitely one of the hardest to listen to sometimes. Scalcior is lyrically a very simple song, all about playground politics initially, and just features children and their antics while they're playing around. However, it very quickly becomes a song about the simplicity of being a child, and about how being an adult is very difficult and you don't have the same freedoms and the same easy life you do as a child. Lyrics like "All of this before the brainwash starts, before they get polluted, start thinking like adults" really put this very well, I think. The following track, Transformations, really does sound very out of place in my opinion. The weird vocal effects that he used on this song really just don't match the very personal, sad, and mellow vibe of the overall album, and they really just sound almost silly, as well as some of the lyrics on this song, with some of just the weirdest and dumbest lyrics on this song being "Your bitch like a bad fart, all she do is linger," and just really just I don't know what lyrics like that are doing on an album as serious and personal as this. It almost sounds like he's almost going for a really strange comedy rap song, but I don't know why the song is here on this album and who thought that it would fit in. Track Rick's Piano, once again, just really following along with the theme of death and addiction on this album, and it's just another great song that does a great job at that. And finally, the closing track on this album, Tomorrow We'll Never Know, is one of the best outros that I've heard just on any album ever. This song comes in at almost 12 minutes long, and after just a really nice first half that matches the album well, during the outro of the song, the sound of a phone ringing starts to appear, and it's very muffled, and it just continues ringing for almost the entire second half of the song, while you have the sound effect effects of distant children playing in the background. And as the muffled phone continues to ring, it really just leaves you wondering, is someone going to pick it up? Is someone going to leave a voicemail? And as it keeps ringing until the end of the song, nobody picks up and nobody leaves a voicemail. And it just feels very symbolic, this being not only a posthumous release, but very possibly the last Mac Miller release we'll ever see, or at least for a long time. I think on the whole, in my opinion, this album really rivals Circles as Mac Miller's best album, which is almost sad that his two best albums are the only two that he never really got to see be fully completed and released. But this album, Balloonerism, really does just feel like his most personal and most emotional work yet, and I'm so glad that this album has finally seen the light of day because it is absolutely amazing, and so I'm feeling an 8 out of 10 for this album. Thank you so much for watching this review. Please be sure to listen to this album yourself and tell me your thoughts below. Please leave a like if you liked the video and leave a dislike if you didn't like the video, and remember to stay hydrated.